It's France in the early 20th century, and we're cheesemakers. We'll make, age, and sell artisanal cheeses in Fromage. Thank you for joining us at Tantrum House Studio D. I'm Melissa Delp.
And I'm Kevin Delp. Fromage is a simultaneous worker placement game with several scoring methods. It's for 1 to 4 players and takes about 45 minutes to play. It's designed by Ben Rossett and Matthew O'Malley and published by Road to Infamy Games.
They sent us this copy to review. Now in this video, we'll give a super quick overview of the game and then share our thoughts. In Fromage, you play as cheesemakers. You have 3 workers who each make a different type of cheese. You'll be placing them on the central board to collect resources and make cheese. The strength of the actions determines how long your workers stay on the board. After each turn, the board rotates 1 quadrant to the left.
Each turn, players take their actions simultaneously. First, you retrieve any of your workers that are facing you. If you can't see your worker's face, it stays on the board. Then you place workers in the section of the board that's in front of you. You can place 1 in the resource section and 1 in the cheese-making section.
In the resource section, you can gain 1, 2, or 3 of the resources in your quadrant. They're going to be berries, livestock, order cards, or structures. It doesn't matter which worker you use, but that worker will remain on the board until the quadrant it points to is in front of you.
When you place a worker in the cheese-making section, it has to match the type of cheese you want to make. Place 1 of your cheese tokens on the space and cover it with the correct worker. Bronze spaces take 1 turn to retrieve your worker, silver spaces take 2 turns, and gold spaces take 3 turns.
After everyone has completed their actions, you rotate the board and start a new turn.
You keep taking turns until someone places their last piece of cheese. Then the game ends and you score up those points.
Each quadrant scores differently. You want connected cheese tokens in the festival, cheese on different shelves in the fromagerie, area influence in the ville, and paired cheeses in the bistro.
You also score points for completed orders, your used fruit and jam, and some of your built structures. Whoever has the most points, you won't believe it, the winner.
Wow. So I know that was brief and basic, but we'll go into some more details as we talk about our opinions.
We're going to separate the section into the 4 C's, our thoughts on components, our critiques, our commendations, and finally, our conclusions.
So starting out with the components, I liked the player boards. Mm-hmm. They were useful. They have a spot to store your resources, your structures, your livestock, your fruit, and they are asymmetric.
Yeah,
so
always like that.
The top structures are similar types, but they do different things printed on your board. And then, yeah, it just has a lot of the information that you need for scoring and other things. So I thought that the player boards were useful and helpful.
The inserts, there's actually 2 sort of inserts. They are in the shape of cheese.
Ooh, a cheese wedge.
But it's nice because in each of these component trays, you have your fruit. Thank you. Yes. Your fruit and your animals and the different tiles and cards. But the other one has pretty much the same exact thing so that you can have them on separate spots on the table so it's within easy reach of all the players.
Yeah, it's not like, hey, Kevin, can you give me a livestock? You can usually do it so everyone can reach them. Talking about those tokens, I thought it was fun that they had different shapes. Like for the livestock, there's cows and sheep and goats. Mm-hmm. But I think that did confuse one of our players at the very beginning because the livestock icon is always a cow. Yeah. And they took one as like, oh, it's a sheep. Is that okay? So part of it is just letting the players know that, oh, there's going to be different fruits, there's going to be different shapes of structures and livestock, and it's okay. It's just extra variety.
Yeah, I like it. And that's the same, the structures are kind of fun like that as well. The board, like we mentioned in the overview, it rotates throughout the game, and I like that, the component of rotating the board. Now, it's not like it's on a spinner or anything where you're actually like easily rotate, so everyone sort of has to like work together just to rotate it that one quadrant to the next one. It wasn't hard. It is a circular board, so I think it works well. But it's not like there's some games where it's like, oh, you just like, it spins.
Right.
It's just a circular board that everyone just moves.
Yeah, you move the whole board. The pieces do kind of like interlock like a puzzle, so they can be in a different order each time.
Yeah.
But that also helps when you're moving them. They are connected.
Yeah, agreed.
So another kind of component gameplay thing with a game is that each of the boards has an insert.
Yes.
So for each quadrant, you use a different insert if you're playing 2, 3, or 4 players. And they are double-sided.
Yeah, that's nice.
So that gives some variety. And for 4 players, it's also on the board as well, printed.
Oh, cool. All right, are we ready to move to our critiques?
Let's do it.
So in a 4-player game, there's a little bit more blocking that goes on in different ways. First, in the worker placement at the top where you're getting those resources, if one player takes the 3 spot and then the next round, the next player takes the 2 spot, then the only spot available for that third round, because it's going to be that third player, is the 1 spot.
Right, so
it can be a little blocking.
Yeah, one of our friends noticed that he usually only had the option to get 1 of the resource because Kevin and our other friend would take those higher spots.
And I remember that game specifically because I had a power that rewarded me for taking the 3 spot. So I was getting even more resources than normal, which helped my game out.
So it was a little bit of player turn order and the specific things with that power.
Right. It may not happen every game, but it could. The other thing is blocking is actually in the different quadrants where you are getting the points. Where those are like
the cheese making.
The cheese making, yeah, the cheese making quadrants. People could take the spots you want, whether it's the bronze, silver, or gold that you need, or even the color cheeses. And I was even thinking there was a game where I was trying to make cheeses that had the jams or the jellies, and it felt like, oh, I need this specific one, or I'm trying to do that because that gets you even more points when you're able to do that, and I wasn't able to get those.
Yeah, and it's not like people were blocking you on purpose.
No.
It's just they were playing their game and ended up taking the spot that would have really worked for you.
Yeah.
Although, if people are really paying attention, all the information is available. You could be like, oh, that person really needs that spot to score a lot of points. But being able to take it, you would have to have the right worker.
Yeah.
Lots of things would have to fall into place to be able to purposefully block someone.
Yes.
So one of my critiques, and one of the resources are these order cards. So it's something you can gain by placing your workers up in the top spot. And it's kind of random which ones you get. They're going to show a type of cheese and an age. So bronze, silver, gold, and then either the hard cheese, soft cheese, or the blue cheese. And you're like, oh, I have these orders. I need to complete them.
Yeah, because they give you points.
But it's actually not a lot of points. So if you focus too much on those, it may be to the detriment of actually scoring in the region. So it's one of those elements that you can kind of get focused on, and you have to actually do a lot of them to get to the higher point values.
I agree. You're going to get way more points in like the cheese making areas or just doing other things in the game.
So you want to use them opportunistically as opposed to being like, oh, I have this order. I have to find a spot to do it.
Yeah, don't think of it as a goal. I have to do it. Think of it as, oh, I'm getting these points and it works out.
Right.
So the other thing for like one more critique that I think we have is you do need to be aware of the end game. It's not like there's a certain number of rounds in the game, because it really does depend on if someone puts a lot of their cheese out. You could be like, oh no, Melissa, you only have 1 cheese left. You may still have 4 or 5, and putting those cheese out on the board is really a great way of getting points. So that means that one person probably has a lot of points, because there's area control, there's lots of things going out on the board, and you may like have not thought about, the number of turns that are going to be left in the game. And based on that, you may not get to the cheese making spot that you were maybe planning on if the game ends too soon.
Yeah, so you do have to pay attention and kind of make sure you're keeping track of how many cheese tokens people have. Normally you can only put out one during the game, but there are ways to do more, so it can be surprising.
Ooh, that might lead us to our commendations. Ready for some strategic talk?
All right, so the things that we enjoyed about this game.
I like it in games when there's good tension, not frustrating tension, and I feel Fromage has that good tension because you are determining on your turn, do I go for those bigger resources and get lots of resources, but then I have to wait to get my worker back? And that also not only goes for the resources, but also goes for the cheese making area, because if you're placing it in a gold, which is probably going to get you a lot of points, you have to wait 3 turns before you're going to get your guy back. So that tension is really good, which I think leads into planning.
Yeah, and I'll say, because especially in the cheese making section, you have to use the right color worker.
Yes.
So if I put my blue cheese guy on a 3, I know I can't make blue cheese with a worker for 3 turns.
Yeah.
So, planning.
The planning is so important in this game, and there may come a point, especially I find almost every time I play it, at the very end, I'm like, I need a blue cheese with a white, or, with the gold, and I need it to be this thing to get the maximum points that I need for whatever my strategy was. So that planning is definitely ramps up throughout the game. So it might not be as important at the beginning of the game, but you sort of feel that tension and the planning going on. Okay, I need to save this gold worker, or the yellow cheese worker, for 2 turns from now, because I want to place them in that quadrant over there.
And you hope no one takes that spot before you get there.
But I enjoy that. That's kind of fun, and I appreciate the variability of that.
Yeah, and you can even get to a spot where this is going to be rotating to be next. Oh, there's only like yellow cheese and white cheese left. I can't even place a blue guy there. So kind of looking ahead to see what's available. So one of the things I liked is a specific action on your player board. Okay. And those are the milking sheds. They use livestock tokens, and that's what lets you place a bonus cheese out. So you could use a worker, your one worker that you're allowed to use in the cheese making area, and then use one of the milking sheds to place an extra cheese.
Without a worker.
Yeah, which can be super strategic if you're trying to get connected spots in the area where you're trying to make the patterns. Or the bistro, where if you have both sections on the same table, you're going to get extra points. Being able to place both of those at the same time instead of like having to wait 4 turns for it to come back to you. So I really enjoyed that aspect of it, although your board does tell you the type of cheese. Yeah. So it's not just you can place any cheese.
Well, there is, I think most boards are the last one, which is the most expensive one. I think you can place any, but the other ones are sort of asymmetric, which leads me to, I think, what we both enjoy are games that have those asymmetrical player powers or player boards. This one has it. And I enjoy that you're sort of starting off with something a little bit different, not only in the structures, but also the cheese or the milking sheds. So that's enjoyable. And in addition to that, there's a sort of an advanced play where there's advanced structures that you can add into your game, and you sort of draft those at the beginning of the game. But it's really up to you. I think you draft 4 at the...
there's several, and you don't have to use them.
Yeah, you don't have to. You could be like,
they cover what's printed on your board.
On your asymmetrical board. So you could be like, oh, I really like these 2. I don't really want, don't like these 2. So you could draft those advanced structures, which could help you in your strategy, whatever that would be, whatever you want to do that game. So, and you're just placing them over, and each of those will cost different amounts of structures. So some could be really expensive, some might be pretty easy to build. So you have to just really determine what you want to do. I enjoy that advanced structures, just the flexibility that it gives in the game.
Yeah, I had one that made the milking sheds cheaper, so 1 fewer livestock. So that helped me get extra cheese out on the board quicker.
And I think I mentioned one earlier in the video where I was able to place my worker on a 3 spot, and that shed, once it was built, let me get an additional of that resource when I place on the 3 spot, which was great because I'm getting instead of 3 fruit, I'm getting a 4th fruit. That way I don't have to really worry about, in that game, I'd have to worry about a specific resource, and maybe I could even skip that one turn to save my workers for a future, I enjoyed it.
Yeah, and some of them give you points at the end of the game, so if you build the structure, maybe for every fruit token you've used or something.
There's so many.
Lots and lots.
Yeah.
So, lots of ways to get points. That's my next point. I was like, it's so involved.
Yeah, I know.
I like games where you can employ different strategies or try different things.
I agree. Yeah, it's really cool.
And like we've mentioned before, there are those 4 cheese-making areas, and they all score differently. So if you really like that area majority influence, there's that board. There's the board where you're trying to get your cheese slices connected, and then there are like wilds on the board, so if you can connect to them, it helps extend your path. And I just liked that I could go in different directions, and maybe someone hardly does anything on one of the boards and really focuses on another one. Now you do have to wait for it to cycle back to you, though, so I enjoyed that there were lots of different strategies and ways to use your cheese to get points.
Agree. So for our conclusions, I really like to try to compare the game that we're talking about to like other games that you might be familiar with. And the one that sort of popped in my mind right away was Tzolk'in from CGE. You have your workers that you're placing out on these multiple rotating boards, and you sort of have to wait. You're placing your worker out and you're sort of waiting for your worker to come back. Now on that one, I think you're activating it when you get your worker back. This one, you're activating it as soon as you place your worker on. So definitely different. Not saying it's the same game, but just reminded me of that.
There's still a timing aspect to it.
So, and worker placement games. So if you enjoy worker placement type games like we do, I think you're going to enjoy Fromage.
Now, we are big fans of the designers, Matthew O'Malley and Ben Rossett. Yeah. We actually know them. Yeah. We've followed them around at conventions and bugged them to play their prototypes. Yep. So we're always interested in seeing what is next from this design team. Some of our favorites that they've done are the Between Two Cities and Castles games and the Search for
Planet X
and Search for Lost Species. Yes. So we've enjoyed those games and really like these designers.
Yeah, and we also enjoy the theme of this game. There's not a lot of cheese-making games out there, or cheese-themed games. I enjoy that they integrated the theme well into the gameplay. So you have to, age your cheese well. So the bronze and the silver and the gold are sort of like the ages of your cheese, so it's easier to get your cheese back because it's not aged as long. And you also have the France theme that's on the board and placing the cheese making area. So I think all of that really works well. Not only the aging of the cheese, but also the making of the cheese with the cows and the sheds. So I think everything just works well in the game with the theme integrating well into the gameplay.
So I would say overall that I have enjoyed my plays of Fromage. We normally like games at the higher player counts, and I would say that we enjoyed it at 4 players.
Yeah, 3 and 4 I think is great. 2 players, okay.
Yeah, because you have some of those area control aspects. I like that there is some interaction because of the, blocking, but there's not mean interaction. There's nothing that's going to steal your stuff or destroy your thing. So I like the kind of minimal, nice, pleasant interaction in the game. Yeah. And then I always appreciate games that have variability with setup and goals and scoring and that sort of thing, which Fromage has. And then the last thing that I would mention is the decision space. It has a mixture of that long-term planning of what do I need 3 turns from now? I need to make sure I have these workers at this time. Oh, I didn't put all 3 out and I have no workers this turn, which can happen. Yeah. But then it also has the tactical, adaptive decision-making of, oh, someone took that spot, now I need to rethink, or opportunistically, I now have access to something that I wasn't expecting.
Yeah.
So it mixes those two types of planning and strategy, which I enjoy in a game.
I like that it's pretty simple to understand and easy to play. I would put this almost smack dab in like the medium. Like if it's not too light, it's not too heavy. It's like, to me, it's like right there, right in the middle. I don't know. Would you say?
Yeah. I would say because you have different scoring aspects that you need to understand, but what you're doing on your turn is pretty simple.
Yeah.
Putting your people out and then waiting for them to look at you.
Right. So that is my type of game. I enjoy those types, like the light to medium, the right in here, the medium heavy. Those are my I just really enjoy those. It makes me want to come back to those games and play them again. So I'm like, if someone says you want to play Fromage, I'm like, oh yes. Years from now, I think I would still be like, yeah, let's play that game. So 2 thumbs up for me.
All right. Yes. So that is Fromage from Road to Infamy Games. If this sounds interesting, then check it out.
Yeah, and let us know. Are there other cheese games out there? Maybe. You know. You can tell us in the comments. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe.